There is a power so dangerous, so all-consuming, that the majority of people spend their whole lives unwittingly fleeing from it, not because they are afraid of what it will do to other people, but because they are afraid of what it will stir up within themselves. This isn't wealth, it isn't fame, and it isn't controlling others. This is the type of power that rewires your soul, kills your old self, and brings back something harder, colder, and much deadlier. The type of power that doesn't scream, it observes. It observes. And when it moves, the world is different. Machiavelli never meant to provide the masses with the blueprint. His words were a warning, not an invitation. Because if you're brave enough to move past comfort, past fear, and into the silence where actual control resides, then you need to know this. Actual power requires the killing of everything soft within you. It requires distance, calculation, and the sort of discipline that would shatter most men. This isn't an inspirational speech. It's a psychological firearm. And if you're still here, then perhaps you're ready to cross the line. There is a type of power that most people will never lay their hands on, not out of lack of desire, but out of inability to withstand it. It is not the power of influence, nor the power of money, nor even the power of domination over people. It is the type of power that transforms you, distorts your mind, distorts your personality. And once you step across the line, you never become normal again. Machiavelli cautioned that people are better off without power, because if you give the average man actual power, he destroys himself. He overextends himself. He is reckless. He confuses fear with respect, and soon finds himself besieged by enemies, or worse, by men who pay him homage until they are ready to strike. That is why Machiavelli never taught power to the people. He wrote for the one, the ruler, the shadow, the strategist. And if you're hearing this now, you are not supposed to be ordinary. But if you're not careful, this amount of power will consume you whole. Let's begin with the first uncomfortable reality. Real power is founded on emotional detachment. Most people believe power is about status, currency, followers, fame. But that's superficial static. Machiavelli knew true power begins with the capacity to stay emotionally detached from how others respond. This is what kills most individuals. They experience influence for the first time and immediately begin to crave for validation. They start measuring their words in terms of applause. They begin requiring loyalty rather than expecting it. They become performers, not leaders. Machiavelli would vomit on this. He assumed that the instant your feelings are dependent upon the way people feel about you, then you are their subject, even if they seem to obey you. That's why his deadliest students were cold, not cruel, not angry, cold. Because the man who won't recoil when people beg, weep, fawn, or threaten, that man can conquer empires. But this is the paradox. The more detached you are emotionally, the more people will become fixated with controlling you. They'll tell you that you're too cold, you've changed, you don't care about people anymore, you think you're superior. They'll probe you, hoping to guilt you back into being controllable. They'll lay emotional bait before you like landmines and hope you'll pick one up. And if you take the bait, you show them you were pretending all along. But if you simply move through the madness unflappable, if you observe them without stirring, without speaking, without justifying yourself, they'll recognize that you're no longer one of them. You've crossed the line. The second truth is that power isn't bestowed. It's stolen, quietly. Most people wait for permission. They desire power given to them, conferred by title, endorsed by others. That is weakness. Machiavelli taught that real power is never given. It's seized, but silently. No proclamation, no announcement, no revolt. You just become the one they pay attention to, the one whose quiet makes others speak faster, the one whose presence warps the room, the one who doesn't scream but whose decisions cascade through everybody. That doesn't occur overnight. It's a war of positioning. You figure out who's emotionally vulnerable,
You research who is attempting to be noticed. You talk less, maneuver better, strike covertly, and before they could even notice it, you're the mastermind behind it all without ever entering the limelight. That's why Machiavelli declared, "It is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both." But what he was really saying was this: be unreadable, be untouchable, be so subtly dominant that love is but a cover for fear. The ultimate truth in this stage: if you don't master your environment, it will reprogram you. This is what is killing even the most intelligent men. They learn power, they ascend, they rule, and then they relax, surrounded by the wrong people, the wrong energy, the wrong feedback. Gradually they relax. They laugh too quickly. They trust the unproven. They overlook cues, and the setting that earlier revered them turns against them and devours them. Machiavelli not only warned leaders to be tactical, he instructed them to protect their inner circle like a lion protects raw meat, because your environment is either hardening you or weakening you. There is no middle ground. And if you believe you can remain strong while being among people who are emotionally weak, disorganized, dishonest, or needy, you're already draining. The strongest Machiavellian minds cut people off proactively, not with cruelty but with precision. They don't explain it. They vanish. They reposition. They watch from afar. And if someone jumps at your boundaries, they were never worth your proximity. This kind of power is not exciting, it is not lovely, it is not fun. It is surgical, it is isolating, it is cold. But if you can handle that, if you can endure the silence of not having to justify yourself, the restraint of seeing others self-destruct, and the discipline of always being 2 steps ahead, then you're ready for what comes next. True power doesn't yell. It doesn't wear a crown or ask for applause. The most threatening presence in any given room is the one you hardly see, until you come to the realization that every choice in some way was centered around them. That is the inception of psychological gravity. Not louder, not flashier, just more. Most individuals walk into a room and attempt to overpower with sound, energy, movement. The truly powerful do the exact opposite. They allow the room to bend towards them. They only speak last, and when they speak, their words reconfigure the air. Their silences build tension. Their eyes slow down time. They don't occupy the space, they claim it by making space. This is the craft of weaponized invisibility. You don't require constant validation. You require directed absence. Begin to speak less. Begin to allow others to reveal themselves while you watch. Because in silence, people reveal what they attempt to conceal. Command the void, and you command the script. Your enigma is your bargaining chip. Your uncertainty is their fixation. They begin to wonder, what is he thinking? Why did he not answer? Did I do something wrong? And the more they ponder you, the more you have property in their head. And once you're there, you've already prevailed. Machiavelli did not believe in clarity. He believed in managed confusion, cunning illusion.
Was never to be comprehensible. It was to remain only unpredictable enough so that even your dearest friends second-guess your next move. That's what keeps people in line. Not love, not respect, but confusion wrapped in terror. You have to turn yourself into a paradox. You speak less, but when you do, it rattles people. You are kind to someone once, then never again. You compliment someone in public, then vanish from their life completely. Why? Because consistency makes people comfortable, and comfort makes them sloppy. But if they're always guessing, always calculating, always monitoring their tone with you, you've already mastered the whole exchange without saying a word. This is controlled contradiction. You preach peace, but can become violent in an instant. You smile warmly, but don't mean it. You appear generous,
but nobody ever feels secure with you. This mix of confusion and calm creates the definition of power. If people don't fear what they know, they fear what they don't. So this is what you do. Flatter someone at the right moment, then ghost them. Be warm to someone who doesn't deserve it, then cold to someone who does. Do a favor unasked, then refuse the next request with no reason. This inconsistency isn't brutality, it's psychological leverage. It makes others play according to rules they don't completely comprehend. And once they lose faith in their own perception, they begin surrendering to yours. This is where most men falter. They mix up empathy with strategy. They think power has to be unfeeling. Machiavelli knew better, though. You can feel without yielding to the feeling. You can witness suffering without losing ground. You can admit someone's pain without altering your course. That's where untouchable power starts. Emotion is information, not an order. Normal men suffocate on guilt. They water-bound their standards to not feel mean. They offer second chances because someone wept. They safeguard feelings at the expense of consequences, and that's why they fail. If you wish to remain powerful, separate your emotion from your action. Listen to the excuse, but don't move. Feel the guilt, but don't flinch. Acknowledge the suffering, but remain committed to your cause. Because true leaders never react. They act with purpose, even compassion. They do not bail out victims who are self-sabotaging. They do not calm the storm. They endure it. Validation is a weapon. Starve them. This is one of Machiavelli's most cold-blooded observations. The less you validate individuals, the more they hunger for you. Not because you were cruel. This is behavior engineering. When a person does something great, shut up. When they praise you, dismiss it. When they want your approval, remain silent. And observe what happens. They spin out of control. They begin to try harder. They double down. They become fixated on winning your admiration, despite you never having vowed to give it. Why? Because ungiven approval is habit forming. You become their reflection, their inner voice, their deity, not due to what you provide, but due to what you take away. And now they are yours. Power isn't so much in how you arrive, it's in how you exit.
Most hold on to power. They linger. They rationalize. They attempt to dictate their legacy. But true Machiavellian power? It fades at the apex. Withdraw at the peak of influence. Vanish when your silence will be heard louder than your voice. Leave them in suspense. What did I do? Was it me? Is he trying me? Don't provide them with a resolution. Provide them with an exclamation point. Because the myth starts after you depart. The most memorable men aren't the ones who remained. They're the men who vanished on the verge of applause and made everyone feel it. The one thing scarier than a strong man is a strong man no one can anticipate, not respected for what he has accomplished, but for what he could do. Machiavelli knew this better than any contemporary planner. Predictable men are secure, comfortable, simple to manage. Their patterns can be followed, their tempos can be predicted, their responses all but scripted. But a man with no set routine? A man whose feelings are not logical? A man who may burn a bridge or construct an empire based on which way the wind blows? Such a man is not to be underestimated, only observed in silence. This is the razor's edge you need to learn to master. Shatter your own pattern, publicly. People are addicted to certainty. They construct emotional models of who you are, when you talk, how you behave, what you accept. Shatter those expectations on purpose. Smile when anger is expected. Remain calm when everyone else panics. Withdraw from confrontation when they expect war. Explode with rage once and never explain it. Why? Because now they don't know how to approach you.
Every conversation becomes a calculation. They rehearse what they'll say. They triple-check their tone. They are afraid to misstep, not because you've threatened them, but because they no longer know your rules. And a fear of the unknown trumps any rule book. Safety comes from consistency. That's why you need to learn to master the strategic reversal. If you're always nice, refuse a favor without explanation. If you're always calm, roll out one thunderstorm and then vanish. If you're always open-handed, say no with a smile and take your leave. Why? Because their brain fixes on your baseline behavior. Then when you turn it around, even once, it induces panic. They wonder about everything. Did I blow it? Is he challenging me? Has the rule set changed? This abrupt uncertainty creates a huge shift in power. They shift from control to caution. They start policing themselves around you, and you didn't even yell. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in the power of muscle, it was in the power of nuance. He taught, manipulate people's minds, not bodies, because the dread of disappointment, the dread of the unpredictable, and the dread of exile is longer lasting than agony. A dominating man is never completely exposed. He is lopsided, one half revealed, the other concealed. You need to train your mind to disclose less, learn more. Never clarify your logic. Pose questions you already have the answers to. Permit others to speak ahead of time, even when you possess the truth. Permit lies to float in the air unchecked. Why? Because when individuals don't know what you do, they start self-censoring. They tiptoe on eggshells. They censor their behavior. They attempt to read your mind without you saying a word. That is wordless dominance. That is motionless control. Your silence is a wall, a force field. It builds space between you and the world, and in that space, they deposit their own fears, hopes, and assumptions. Now we move into high-level psychological warfare. The open thread is a tactic employed by only the most cerebral strategists. Here's what you do. Say, "We'll talk later," and never check in. Begin a sentence. Stop. Smile. Switch topics. Look at someone as if you know something you never say. What you've just done is planted a mental hook, a thought that doesn't complete, an open loop that plays over and over again in their mind. What was he going to say? Did I do something wrong? Was that a warning? They'll obsess, replay the moment, reanalyze the silence. And you? You've forgotten it already. You now live rent-free in their mind, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. Machiavelli didn't just teach how to conquer countries, he taught how to haunt kings. Direct control is for the weak. Yelling, arguing, begging, explaining, that's noise. That's visible desperation. Machiavellian power comes through indirect consequences. You don't rule people, you rule the rules of engagement. Disrespect elicits disappearance, not conflict. Betrayal is greeted with exile, not anger. Overstepping is confronted with silence so absolute that they beg for noise. You become a quiet system of retribution. No warnings, no lectures, just outcomes. And gradually, the fear makes those around you adapt, not because they were ordered to do so, but because they are apprehensive of what happens when you meet silence. This is true fear, not of aggression, but of losing entry into your presence. And when your presence is a privilege, you've already triumphed. Most people desire to be remembered. Few ever become irreplaceable. That's the ultimate manifestation of power. When your silence is heard louder than their screams, when your absence strikes fear more deeply than your presence ever has. This isn't influence. It's not leadership. This is legacy by design. Because here's the brutal truth. Your achievements will pass. Your words will be misquoted. Your trophies, your followers, your victories, they'll all be buried by time. But a myth endures. And that's what Machiavelli knew better than any king, any empire builder, any tactician. Fame is not the objective.
The objective is to be legendized, the sort of name told in fear, called upon in respect, and dreaded without comprehension. How do you become legendary? Individuals don't follow personalities, they follow symbols, a steady, irreproachable energy signature. If you're a saint one day and the beast the next, you might be interesting, but you'll never be legendary. To be consistent isn't to be weak, it's to be unbreakable in the way that the world perceives you. Choose your archetype and embody it, ruthlessly. The cold strategist, cold, calm, never boisterous, always 5 steps ahead. The polite assassin, quiet, courteous, and deadly. The enchanting ghost, magnetic, effortless, and unguessable. Once you commit, you never break
Character, not with friends, not alone, not when you're exhausted, not when you're by yourself. You burn the bridge back to normalcy. Because legends don't unplug, they persist. Even your enemies ought to say, I don't like him, but I respect him. A strong man isn't determined by what he speaks. He is defined by what is said behind his back. Let them speculate. Did he orchestrate all this? Did he actually ruin that man's reputation? Is it true he wants? Your task is not to fuel the rumor. Your task is to disappear into the mist while others forge your legend for you. If someone accuses you of manipulation, smile. If someone calls you ruthless, stay silent. If they compliment your brilliance, shift gears. You provide no confirmation, no denial, just silence. And the less you explain, the stronger the myth. Machiavelli made chaos with no fingerprints. So must you. Forget explaining yourself. Forget justifying. Forget apologizing. Power leaves behind shapes, not reasons. A shadow, not a speech. Examples. End a conversation in mid-sentence with no anger. Praise your toughest critic once and never again. Show up at a person's lowest point, then disappear the following day. These are not cruel acts. These are acts of memory design. Nobody remembers what you say. They remember how you left them feeling, without an ending. That tension, that uncertainty, that charge, that's the creation of your legend. Loyalty is not demanded. It is crafted. Anyone can demand loyalty. Fewer still know how to make turning on you suicidal. Machiavelli didn't reward loyalty. He made risk-weighted loyalty. This is how. If someone defends your reputation in public, reward them privately, in secret, in abundance. If someone betrays you privately, ruin them publicly, with no explanation, no hesitation. Never threaten, never warn, simply do, and let the fallout reverberate. Why? Because now, people won't remain loyal out of love. They'll remain loyal out of fear. Not fear of what you've done, but fear of what you may do. That is worship in its most unpolished form. Words are for the weak. Presence is for the strong. You no longer require language to form the world at this point. Your presence must demand weight. Practice this as a ritual. Go into rooms 5 seconds behind everybody else. Allow others to fill the pauses. Hold your pause longer than is required when asked a question. Smile without warmth. End the conversations first. Dress always one level below what the room anticipates. Why? Because these below-conscious cues trump logic. They cause individuals to adapt, conform, and second-guess themselves without you ever having to utter a single word. You're not a man any longer. You're a feeling, a storm with a serenely calm eye, a recollection no one can forget. They want to be looked at. You get yourself trained to be felt.
They desire to be liked. You make others work for the privilege of standing near you. They desire to be known. You are unexplainable. And that is where you become indelible. Not due to your wins, not because of your fame, not even because of your brilliance, but because of what you make people when they are in your presence. You are no longer accumulating power. You are the power. Not because of what you do, but because of what other people become when they see they'll never truly know you. And that's when the myth is fulfilled. Power isn't something you pursue. It's something you become so utterly, so totally, that even in your absence, the world still moves to the rhythm of your shadow. Machiavelli never wrote for the masses. He wrote for the man nobody notices approaching. The ghost of the room, the silent one who utters nothing, yet seems to determine everything. He is not boisterous, not hasty, not seen. He is a storm in human shape, not the lightning, too conspicuous, not the thunder, too clamorous, but the pressure realignment before the tempest releases, the intuition in the atmosphere that something great is coming. That is the last law of power. Don't proclaim, don't tell, don't do, just be so strongly, so silently, that people alter their actions just because you exist. You don't require revenge. You don't require validation. You don't even require recognition. For when you achieve this level of dominance, when silence from you is frightening, when you are absent and need arises, when your randomness becomes the law, you're no longer an individual. You're a legend.
They never perish.